Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Thinking Crypto channel. I have a very special guest with me today, Phil Bonello, who's the Director of Research at Grayscale Investments. Phil, it's great to be chatting with you today.
Thanks, Tony. Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Phil, I'm excited to speak with you because I've wanted to get an inside look into Grayscale. We've heard a lot of news. You guys are doing some big things and a lot of eyes on Grayscale. So lots of questions on my end, but let's start with your background. Where are you from? Where did you grow up?
Sure, yeah. Originally from Chicago. I grew up in the city of Chicago. Went to University of Michigan. Midwest upbringing. That's kind of my background.
And what did you do before working at Grayscale?
So after school, I went to University of Michigan. After school, I worked at IBM, and then I worked at a startup that did natural language generation. So it's like a type of AI, if you want to call it that. And then I joined Ikigai Asset Management as the head of research. Ikigai is a long, short, and multi-strategy crypto hedge fund out in LA. So that was a really interesting experience. And then I joined Grayscale about a little over a year ago.
And what was your first encounter with Bitcoin and crypto? And what was your aha moment? Like, oh, I get it, and I want to go work in this space.
Yeah, so I think a lot of people join through Bitcoin. For me, it was really through Ethereum. Like I said, I was working at IBM, and I was specifically working in like the IoT space. I'm setting up like smart factories and such. And so when I started to look for new jobs, I was really interested in machine-to-machine communication. And I happened upon Ethereum on a message board. And I was like, oh, this is going to solve so much of what I'm thinking about. Like, this is how machines are going to autonomously communicate with each other. And so really Ethereum was like the first entrance into the crypto world. And that's when I fell down the rabbit hole.
Got it. So I have to ask, what do you hold in your crypto portfolio?
I'll say, I don't want to show my bags or anything like that. So I'll just say, I hold Bitcoin. I hold a collection of altcoins and Ethereum. So I'm not like a maximalist in any respect. So I have a diversified crypto portfolio.
Awesome. So let's talk about Grayscale. For those who are new to crypto listening to this podcast or watching the video, can you give us a 30,000-foot view of Grayscale? What is it about? What are the services you provide?
Yeah. So Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, which is the flagship product for Grayscale, was founded in 2013. Grayscale itself was founded in 2015. What Grayscale does is essentially package crypto products to resemble securities that are familiar to most investors. Investing in the underlying can be kind of daunting to some people. And so really what Grayscale does in the most simple terms is just package cryptocurrencies into financial products that are familiar to investors. And we have 14 different products, most of which are single asset passive products, and one of which is an index, market cap weighted index product.
Got it. So it's essentially funds that are tied to specific cryptos, and folks can invest in those respective funds.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Now, is your service for institutional investors, or do you also provide services to retail investors?
Yeah, so the private placement is open to accredited investors. And what is unique about our products is that they are available to be traded on the secondary market. And so, through a typical brokerage account, you can access something like Grayscale Bitcoin Trust under the ticker Gbtc. And so that is a common way for investors to get exposure to Bitcoin.
So we've heard a lot of reports of institutional investors investing in Gbtc. Can you give us insight into what type of institutions or institutional clients you're seeing demand from?
Yeah, in general, it's dominated by hedge funds and family offices. We also see some interest and a growing amount of interest from pensions and endowments, but those are obviously like slower moving institutions, and Yeah. So right now it's really the hedge funds and the family offices that are pouring into crypto.
Got it. Yeah. And I'm always curious, and I think the audience listening to, as to who's what's the next domino to fall, right? From that perspective. And it seems corporates are, jumping in, putting Bitcoin in their balance sheet, and all these things are happening. So I've seen your assets grow almost exponentially year over year, quarter over quarter, month over month. What's the current asset under management, and what type of growth have you guys been seeing?
Yeah, I think our current AUM is about 50 billion,
Wow.
which is quite amazing, given that I think at the beginning of 2020, it was about 2 billion. So just astonishing growth. The appreciation in crypto has definitely helped, but we have also seen enormous inflows. I think in Q4 we saw approximately 3 billion in inflows, and Q1 was a really strong quarter as well for us. So it's been amazing, and I think one of the driving factors of that certainly has been the narrative of monetary inflation, which we first saw kind of Paul Tudor Jones from a kind of institutional trading perspective highlight in, I think, May of 2020. And since then, we've seen a lot of people pile onto that narrative as M2 really grew, 27% year over year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people are expecting just some massive inflation that's coming. And it seems a lot of folks are moving towards crypto now. Can you tell us about the recent addition of Filecoin, Chainlink, and the other cryptos? You guys added a handful there. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, absolutely. We've been working on these products for a while. We're always trying to bring new products that are demanded in the marketplace to our Grayscale product suite. And I really like the diversity of products that we brought to market. So LivePeer is a video transcoding service, a really robust decentralized network to provide video transcoding, which is important if we want to have like anti-fragile live streaming at some point. Filecoin is a decentralized storage network, which I'm really excited about. Decentralized storage, it's just a massive market. Decentraland, and the asset behind Decentraland in this case is Mana, and virtual worlds are, I think, kind of an inevitability in crypto, and crypto is really enabling virtual worlds to become really a big market. Brave browser has, I think, over 25 million monthly active users, and their token is basic attention token. So that's really exciting. And then Chainlink is sort of the leader in the Oracle space, and oracles are thought of as kind of a bridge between off-chain data and on-chain services. So a lot of services, especially in decentralized finance, require data feeds, and Chainlink is kind of the primary bridge to bring price data and different types of data onto blockchain networks.
So I'm curious. I'm sure you, as a director of research, you're looking at these respective tokens and different cryptos and digital assets as to maybe what can be added to Grayscale's portfolio. But also, or do you guys take into account maybe if your clients are asking, hey, when are you going to have a Chainlink trust? How's that process?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the primary inputs is their market demand. We ultimately want to be a bridge to access crypto, and if our clients really have a high demand for some of these assets, we want to rush to bring them to market in kind of the best way possible.
For sure. So I have to ask, and I don't know if you can speak to it, but I have to ask. I'm sure there's plans to add new cryptos. And any hints or insights you can share there?
All I can really say is we're always trying to meet market demand, and I think when you look at the market right now, it's pretty clear where there's demand, and so we are trying to build products that will kind of meet demand that we're seeing from our clients and meet demand that we're seeing in the general market.
And as far as the custody for the cryptos that you have, who do you currently use for custodial services?
Yeah, so currently we use Coinbase, and yeah, I think we're probably their largest client.
Okay, got it, got it. So all the respective cryptos you have in your trust, Coinbase custody is for you. And would it be safe to say that if there's a asset they don't support necessarily on their exchange, you would maybe use another custodian, or it doesn't matter? You could just custody whatever you need to with them.
Yeah, custody is certainly a prerequisite for us. We have, we make that decision when we're deciding whether we want to support a given asset. I don't want to speak too specifically to our process, but yeah.
Got it. Now there's reports about Grayscale premium and possibly some issues there, and I would hope that you would be able to maybe add some clarity, shine some light on the situation and how Grayscale is looking to address it.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, so I think it's important to remember that the Gbtc price is kind of a market-based phenomenon, right? So we issue shares on through a private placement process, and later on, those shares are freely tradable. So at any point in time, the price of Gbtc may not necessarily reflect the price of the underlying, and throughout Gbtc's lifetime, those shares have traded at a premium. Mm-hmm. However, right now with new products coming to market, with an increased number of shares out in the market, it has been trading at a discount. And so that isn't something that we necessarily have specific purview into. It's really just a market phenomenon, and it's a demand and supply issue.
Sure. Now, I've heard talks and from your CEO, Michael, about transitioning the Gbtc to a Bitcoin ETF. Can you tell us about that and how that would be done? And look, there's so many people throwing their hats in the ring to try to get a Bitcoin ETF. In addition to how that will be done, what's your outlook and optimism as far as getting one approved this year?
Yeah, so as Michael has said, I think Barry said this as well. Grayscale is fully committed to converting Gbtc into an ETF. I think it's important to keep in mind that it's a long road. The regulatory environment is, certainly unclear, and Grayscale is really taking all the approaches that it can. We're well positioned, and we're engaging with the SEC as appropriate. Your previous point about the premium and the discount, I would say that if Gbtc were to be converted into an ETF, there would be those Gbtc shares would be automatically converted into the ETF shares. And given the way that an ETF functions, there would be an arbitrage opportunity, which would likely close any premium or discount gap.
That's interesting. What are your thoughts on Gary Gensler, a man who's now going to be the chairman, but very knowledgeable about crypto, was teaching Bitcoin and crypto at MIT, which I think is unprecedented for any SEC or regulatory person or leading even a division. What are your thoughts that, given that he knows about it, the likelihood of one getting or multiple ETFs getting approved this year is very high?
So I certainly think that it's a positive development that Gary Gensler is, in the SEC chair right now, and it's great that he's so educated on crypto and so educated on blockchain, and that he's taught classes at MIT. I wouldn't want to speak specifically to whether that means it's more or less likely that a crypto ETF gets approved, but it's great that we have regulators that are really educated on the matter, and I think that when an ETF gets approved, it's going to be a huge moment for the industry. Obviously, it gives everybody access to crypto in a way that just currently isn't possible.
Yeah, absolutely. I think everybody's anxiously awaiting it, given that some are being approved in Canada and other countries. And obviously it starts with a Bitcoin ETF, and then ETH ETF can follow, and so on and so forth. So I want to ask, what are some of the trends? I know you can't speak to everything, but maybe what you can share as the director of research, what are you seeing in the crypto market as a whole, and from the Grayscale perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think what a lot of people are talking about, right? I think decentralized finance is incredibly interesting. The ability to have peer-to-peer borrowing, lending, exchange, build derivative products, build fixed income products, that's pretty amazing. And I think like Ethereum as a network and some of these smart contract networks are just very well positioned to build those types of products. I think NFTs are really interesting as well. There's obviously been a lot of hype in the NFT space. Things selling for just what seem like kind of crazy prices. But people love NFTs, whether it's just artwork or it's an avatar, or more of a functional NFT where there's some sort of use tied to a specific signature. You can't deny that the market is responding favorably to NFTs. I'm also like really interested in what is happening in the storage space. I mentioned that we recently listed Filecoin as one of our products. When I think about one of the biggest potential transformations in the next 10, 20 years is taking personal ownership of data versus kind of conglomerates owning our data. And so whenever that becomes really easy to do, that's going to be a huge watershed moment. So that's something I'm watching as well.
So would it be safe to say Grayscale may explore some options with offering some sort of NFT product or marketplace or something?
I'm not sure I would go that far, but yeah, we're always exploring.
Sure. Okay, so let's talk about Grayscale Commercials. Certainly a very interesting topic for the crypto market, and folks love to see that the commercials are being put out, and it's getting the word out there for the crypto market. Walk me through some of the things you guys are thinking of, some of the current commercials, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I must say that I didn't have my hand in the making of the commercial on a day-to-day basis, but I think what was interesting, and I think what was communicated in the commercial, was really this juxtaposition of Bitcoin and crypto being this really scary environment and something that's like the dark web, like this magic internet money. People they view it as this opaque space, right? And what Grayscale does is we try to make it a very easy space to invest in. And so that was really the juxtaposition of the commercial, where there's this like kind of this fight between the criminal and like the main character, and then really they're just sitting in their living room, and she just simply invested in Grayscale through her brokerage account.
Yeah, for sure. I remember the Drop Gold campaign, and Gold Bug's going crazy over that commercial. So,
that one has fared pretty well, huh?
Yeah. The likes of Peter Schiff and these guys going nuts. But yeah, I love it. I love that you guys are doing kind of that mass marketing, and it seems to be working well for you all. So I kind of asked you some questions along this line, but obviously there's things under NDA and things you won't be able to speak to, but maybe you can drop some hints as to, what else we can expect from Grayscale in 2021. Maybe it's additional coin, trust, whatever those coins may be, or anything else.
Yeah. Again, I can't really speak to any specific coins. Or any specific product developments.
But there possibly plans to add more for sure. But
we're certainly exploring. We have plans to add more products in the coming year.
Awesome. Recently, I think it was reported like Digital Currency Group, obviously the parent company of Grayscale, Barry Silbert, they've been buying the Gbtc shares, if I'm articulating that well. What's the thought process behind that? It's just they're trying to get a holding on their books. having exposure to Bitcoin, but through the GBTC?
Yeah, I think it's really a mechanism to show the market, show our customers that we are fully committed to Grayscale Bitcoin Trust as a product, and that we're also betting on it, right? So we while there is a discount, that discount also presents an opportunity. So if that discount were ever to close, then you're able to capture, that arbitrage between that discount and the net asset value. If an ETF were to get approved, then that arbitrage would close as well. So really, I think Barry and Michael and kind of DCG really wanted to show the market that they're kind of with the customers, with the GBTC customers.
For sure. So let's talk about the market as a whole, and obviously Bitcoin. We're in a bull market. Bitcoin's been on the rise. Everything's rising. What are your guys' perspective and outlook on this? And do you guys believe in like the stock to flow model? And anything you can share on there that take us behind the curtain? What are you guys talking about? What are you thinking about as the market is on the rise?
Sure. I like to look at on-chain metrics. One of the metrics that I particularly like is something that I call the speculator versus holder index. And so I categorize holders as people or coins that have been held for 1 to 3 years. So that filters out kind of short-term supply, and it also filters out coins that have potentially been lost or stolen and just, they're never going to move again. And then you have on the speculator side, coins that have moved in the last 0 to 90 days. Mm-hmm. So what you typically want to see is a really large holder base and a really low speculator base. Mm-hmm. And so, in the last summer, we saw a massive holder base, which pretty much signaled to us that, okay, these holders, these 1 to 3 year holders, have gone through an amazing amount of volatility, and they have not sold through it, right? And so price sitting at 8,000, these holders probably are not going to sell until at least a new high, right? Because they've undergone volatility over the last 1 to 3 years. And so now, as we've reached new highs, we start to see that holder base start to change a little bit. The holders are going down, speculators are going up a little bit, which I think just indicates that we're later on in the market cycle, right? Like, I think everyone would agree with that. We're obviously not at the very beginning of it. And so yeah, I think one thing to caveat there is potentially some of those old holders have sold their coins to a new set of holders. I'm talking about institutions in this case, which have a much longer time frame, much longer time horizon on their kind of holdings. Like they're not necessarily putting 50-75% of their treasuries into Bitcoin. They're putting maybe 0.5, maybe 1% of their treasuries in. And with such a small allocation, they can feel comfortable with a long holding period as well. And so I think we've seen also that corroborated, like through on-chain metrics, like the amount of supply that's on exchange. And so you can see that there are sometimes there are these really large outflows from exchanges to kind of probably custodial wallets. And so that's a potential indication of institutional adoption.
So we've been seeing the likes of MicroStrategy, Tesla, and so forth, and so on and so forth, putting Bitcoin in a balance sheet. I think we just heard about Mogo. They bought some Ether and they have some Bitcoin. So there's a trend here, and it goes back to the reason of inflation and the monetary policy. Are you guys in any way approaching these corporates to say, hey, instead of, you don't have to go through the whole jumping through all these hoops to buy the actual asset, but you can buy GBTC, and that could be a way for you to get exposure? Is that like a strategy of yours to approach these folks?
Yeah, I do believe the sales team is that they do have that approach, and I think there are actually some potential accounting benefits in holding GBTC versus holding the underlying.
Got it. And would some of that be holding Gbtc versus the actual asset be maybe like regulation wise, it maybe protects certain companies?
I think that might be part of it, but there's specifically a gap accounting rule. So yeah, unfortunately, I can't speak to all the accounting nuances, but I know that is something that has been raised specifically around Gbtc.
Got it. So I want to ask, because Dogecoin is going crazy. I personally don't hold Dogecoin, but I know a lot of people are talking about. Elon's talking about. He said he's going to talk about an SNL coming this weekend. What do you guys think about that? Because is anybody asking you, hey, where's the Doge trust fund or trust account index or whatever it is?
I don't know if there's been a whole lot of inbound interest around Dogecoin or anything like that, but it's certainly an amazing phenomenon, and you can't fight it. It's the market, and the market has decided that Doge is worth $60 billion or whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's kind of around this idea of financial populism, which we saw with GME and kind of the little guy, taking out the people who think that something is not worth, whatever the value they deem it's worth. Yeah, it's pretty interesting. Obviously, they have Elon helping the whole price action, but yeah, it's been kind of fun. It's been kind of fun to see.
Yeah, what's interesting is Elon, he tweeted about it that he holds Bitcoin. He hasn't sold any. Tesla sold a small amount to prove liquidity. And then they still hold a majority of what they bought on their balance sheet, but they're not holding Doge. But I feel like, I don't know if Elon's trolling and it's just fun and that's driving the price up. And it's like you said, an interesting phenomenon.
Yeah. And what was interesting, that was the first time that Elon, in that tweet that you mentioned, that was the first time that Elon really referenced his ownership of Bitcoin, at least, large ownership. I guess he didn't say how much, but he said, I haven't sold any of my Bitcoin. And I think that is probably in reference to a larger amount of Bitcoin than he's previously said he had. I think he had said he had maybe half a Bitcoin or something. So yeah, I think that's also a very bullish development.
For sure. So I want to ask you about crypto regulations. Obviously, we're still waiting on full regulations, let's say from the SEC. I think we do have some level of regulations from the CFTC. And is Grayscale participating in lobbying or any active advocacy groups and things like that? Anything you can share there?
I think we're making ourselves very much available to the SEC. We're members of the Blockchain Association, so we help where we can there. But yeah, it's just like an ongoing communication with the SEC.
Got it. Well, I hope this year we are able to finally get that regulatory clarity that we need, and maybe Congress is the one that has to take action here. But obviously, some situations going on with the SEC and some other cryptos. But okay, as far as CBDCs, what do you guys think about that with central banks tokenizing fiat currencies, and could Grayscale be involved in helping with any of this or whatever it may be?
Yeah, I actually wrote a report on the difference between CBDCs and kind of public digital currencies, right? It's interesting. There may be efficiency gains in CBDCs. In a way, I think of USDC as almost a CBDC, right? It's a stable coin that's under the purview of kind of the U.S. government. So I struggle to see kind of the long-term utility of CBDCs. When I think about why digital currencies have become so popular, it's not because they're digital, but it's because they're permissionless. They have fixed supply. They may have interesting token dynamics going on. But like with respect to a CBDC, it still is totally and wholly controlled by a central government. And that central government can seize that CBDC. They can print more of that CBDC. They can restrict the transfer of that CBDC. And so you then basically lose all of the great things, that make something like Bitcoin, right? Like Bitcoin is not special because it's digital. It's special because it's censorship resistant, it's fixed supply, it's seizure resistant, it's open and permissionless to everybody in the world. Those are qualities that, for better or worse, I guess, you can't have a central actor in that situation, because at some point that central actor will be faced with the decision of whether or not to limit any of those characteristics that I just mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, like, I interviewed Chris Giancarlo, who's heading up the Digital Dollar Project, and I think one of the open-ended questions or questions on the table that hasn't been answered is how does this line up with the Constitution and privacy and the Bill of Rights and all of that? And I think that still has to be figured out, because to your point, they're going to be able to track, and it's even more centralized and try to probably instantly tax you and whatever it may be. It seems like those things are on the horizon, but probably a larger debate that has to happen with our rights.
I don't think it's a coincidence that China is leading the way on CBDCs, right? It's a really useful tool for a government that wants to, potentially take more control.
For sure. So I want to ask, being the director of research, and you're probably looking at this market macro level, where do you see crypto in 3 to 5 years, from an adoption standpoint? Like, price aside, do you see like a lot of pretty much every company accepting crypto, people spending it, crypto ATMs popping up? Where do you see the future of it?
Yeah, I think this year was the first time that we really saw the development of applications with a good user base. And so I see this as the beginning of a 10 to 20 year trend in how we kind of use online tools. Prior to this year, it was really unclear how any of this was actually going to come together, I think. I looked at Bitcoin and I would say, like, okay, Bitcoin is ready for the world and the world is ready for Bitcoin. The technology was there already, right? Like there's not a whole lot that needs to be done for Bitcoin to work. It's a store of value. With Ethereum, what we're running into right now is, more than anything, it's a bandwidth issue, right? There's not enough bandwidth to support like how much demand there is in crypto. And that's an amazing problem to have, right? Like there is the demand. Now we just need to scale, and we just make the user experience really great, and people will start to use it. So I'm really hopeful. I think I think gaming will be a huge area of adoption. We're already seeing that. Decentralized finance, of course. Like the thing with, and I'm trying to figure this question out currently, is what is the best way to measure the success of something like decentralized finance, right? Like, do you want to look at just aggregate users on a daily basis? I'm not sure, because do people generally participate in finance on a daily basis? Is that what most people in the world do? Is that a broad-based application, or is that something that's going to be more behind the scenes and more of like a institutional adoption type of thing, or something that companies integrate with DeFi and then people integrate with those companies? So I think it's a question of how are layers built out, and where in that tech layer will consumers have their touch points. So yeah, I think it's great. I'm more optimistic now on crypto than I really ever have been.
For sure. Yeah, it seems everybody's jumping on board. Yesterday, eBay CEO talked about it, like they're exploring crypto payments as well as NFT auctions, which would be huge. And I can't imagine that Amazon is sitting on the laurels just watching everybody do this. I think they might be on their way. And who knows, maybe they create their own coin, Prime Coin or something.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. So do you think on that note, like companies like Amazon and Google, we know Facebook's creating their own digital currency, would start to build their own respective coins, and not necessarily to compete with Bitcoin, but within their own ecosystem. And that adds even, adds value and retention to, for their customer base.
Maybe, I kind of struggle to see where that value is. Like I could see it from like a loyalty perspective. Maybe they do some retroactive token. So if you've been a great customer of Amazon or eBay or something like that, then they can airdrop you some tokens like we've seen with some of the DeFi protocols. That would be pretty interesting. But I think what I'm more excited about is really new companies coming to disrupt the incumbents. And I think we're going to see some massive companies be built over the next decade.
Wow. Well, certainly I'm excited about the future of crypto. And I think my last question here, if there's anything I missed, if there's anything that you're seeing on your end that it really piques your interest on the folks at Grayscale that you want to share any thoughts on?
I don't think so. I think I've touched on it. I think we're watching a lot of the developments really closely, like DeFi, NFTs, storage. I think the infrastructure build out is really interesting. So like I talked about with Live here and Chainlink. That's all really needs. We need all of that to scale crypto so that the user experience can catch up, and so that we can really onboard like 1 billion users, right? I think I looked a couple weeks ago, and we still have under 3 million daily active users on Ethereum and Bitcoin in aggregate, right? And so that's peanuts. And so we have a long way to go to really bring this asset class into maturity. So I'm just really excited to see some of these projects come to market.
For sure. Well, let's wrap it up here with some rapid fire questions, such as what's your favorite food?
A good ribeye is probably that's kind of my go-to. I'll often just go pick up a ribeye and toss it on the grill, and that'll be my dinner.
Nice. Favorite musician or band?
Jack Johnson. That's kind of my go-to. That's been my go-to for a long time.
Awesome. I enjoy some Jack Johnson myself. Favorite movie?
Pulp Fiction.
Great one. Favorite book?
The Sovereign Individual.
Very nice. And when you're not working at Grayscale, what are you doing for fun as a hobby?
Yeah, it's tough to pull myself away from crypto. Whether it's Grayscale or just generally crypto. But I like working out, playing tennis, playing golf. Yeah, awesome. Doing active stuff.
Now that NYC is opening up, I guess you'll be out and about a bit more there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm excited for it.
Awesome. Well, Phil, pleasure chatting with you. Excited to see what the new developments will be later this year for Grayscale, and hope to have you back on. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, it's great to be on. Thanks, Tony. Really appreciate it.